A very good morning to you, my dear friends. I bid you welcome to another weekend when we can listen to God's message and receive His blessings. I trust that you will find time to listen this morning and to share this message as usual so that others can be blessed as well. What should the church's relationship with the world look like? There has been much debate on this throughout church history. Some believe the church to be a totally separate body from the world. This has been seen in how some Christian communities isolate themselves from the world in monasteries. They are not to touch the world, listen to its music or entertainment. They are to be totally separated. Though this is not very popular today, some do this in different ways. They go to church with no unbelievers. Their children are homeschooled or go to a Christian school or college. They work in Christian organizations and they literally never have contact with the world. Followers of Christ cannot change the world if they are secluded and separate from the world itself. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus told his listeners, "Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men." And today I would like to discuss with you what it means to be the salt of the earth. What it means to be the salt of the earth. Salt is a very common element in the world. It is a mineral made up of sodium and chloride. The chemical name is sodium chloride. It comes in several different forms. Most of the salt on the earth is dissolved in oceans. The salt that can be found underground comes from oceans that have dried up due to climate changes over time. Scientists believe that the harvesting of salt from the salt water dates back to about 8,000 years ago. In ancient times, before modern canning methods and refrigeration, salt was used as a preservative, especially for meats. Our bodies need salt to function properly. Salt helps to control the level of water in the body. It also helps the nervous system to send electrical signals to the brain. Even though salt is necessary for health, too much salt can be hazardous to our health. It can give us high blood pressure. Today, doctors recommend limiting salt intake. Many traditionally salty foods can now be found in low sodium varieties. Salt was very valuable in the ancient world. So valuable that the Roman soldiers were often paid their wages in salt. This payment was called salarium, and this is where we get the expression, not worth his salt. If you are worth your salt, then you are good at your job or whatever you do. China is the world leader in terms of salt production with about 64 million tons of salt every year, followed by India and then the USA. And because salt is so important to living things, God, our Creator, made it possible for every country in the world to have salt. The purest salt is the pink salt that comes from the Himalayan mountain range that passes through North India, Pakistan, Nepal, China, and Afghanistan. And scientists believe that this pink salt contains about 84 natural minerals found in the human body. We can see why Jesus told his followers that they are the salt of the earth, the salt of the earth. First of all, to be the salt of the earth means that believers preserve society from moral decay. Believers preserve society from moral decay. One of the primary uses of salt in the ancient world was as a preservative. There were no ice machines or refrigerators in those days to preserve food. It was placed in a saline solution. In fact, sometimes salt was even used to preserve bodies for burial. It was a key ingredient used for mummification in Egypt. This implies that the world is on a progressive path to destruction. Left to itself, societies and cultures will naturally decay. They are filled with every kind of unrighteousness, wickedness, covetousness, malice. There is murder and strife and deceit and hostility. There are gossips and slanderers, haters of God, insolent, arrogant, boastful, contrivers of all sorts of evil, disobedient to parents, senseless, covenant breakers, heartless, ruthless. Although they fully know God's righteous decree that those who practice such things deserve to die, they not only do them, but they approve of those who practice them. Religion erodes because people don't want to acknowledge the true God. The family erodes as people lack love. Businesses and government erode as people lack ethics. Society becomes full of evil and murder and strife. This is a natural decay happening in the world. In the midst of this worldwide moral decay, believers are salt, preserving influence on this world. They preserve the world not only by slowing down the decay, but they preserve it in a positive sense by promoting righteousness. Believers preserve society in keeping back God's destructive wrath. Believers preserve society by praying for it. Christians should often pray for presidents, however corrupt and greedy they may be. Pray for kings, for holiness in nations, for the spread of the gospel, and for believers to be salt. They should also continually pray for God's mercy and forgiveness over the sins of others. They must intercede for their family, for the church, and for government. And when they do this, they preserve it from Satan's influence and from God's destruction. Believers preserve society by being a righteous influence in it. Believers are a righteous influence by practicing godly behavior for the weak and vulnerable in society, practicing honesty and integrity, championing righteous causes, and condemning sin. When this is done, it will spur hatred and anger in some, but with others it will draw them to repentance. For many, initially, it will show up in anger and then lead to repentance. As we consider how morally decadent the world is, we must not be shocked. Change and decay in all around I see. It has the treacherous disease of sin in the world, and when it is fully grown, it always produces death. What should we do in such a situation? We should be shocked at the lack of positive influence from the church. When we see the corruption in the world, we must ask, where are the salty Christians? Where is the salt that slows decay and promotes righteousness? It is no surprise that when societies have reached startling heights of corruption, the church has followed its path. Believers are salt by bringing flavor to society and creating a thirst for Christ. Bringing flavor to society and creating a thirst for Christ. The ancient world used salt for seasoning as we do. When eating something well seasoned or spicy, it typically increases one's thirst. Christians should serve a similar role in the world. Though the world mocks Christians, often claiming that they are boring, they don't know how to have fun, the reality is that society itself is bland like tasteless food. Everything it offers fails to satisfy. This is very clear when we consider the ads we see each day. They say, buy this, or watch that, or eat this, or listen to that. Everyone claims to have the latest and greatest product, which will bring satisfaction. However, it all leaves a person ultimately unsatisfied. It may seem to satisfy briefly, but it leaves a person dry. Nothing can truly gratify the desire for eternity and God in the heart of man. Therefore, humanity is doomed to continually run after the next thing. People go from product to product, from job to job, relationship to relationship, only to find themselves unfulfilled. In the Gospel of John chapter 4, verse 13 and 14, Jesus told the woman at the well in Samaria, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks some of the water that I will give him will never thirst again." That is exactly how this world is. Nothing truly satisfies. All their wells leave them parched and dry. When the world looks at believers and sees how different they are, it should provoke them to want to know why. When the world sees how believers can go through trials with joy and without complaining, when they are content instead of constantly dissatisfied, when they bless instead of curse their enemy, when they suffer willingly for righteousness' sake, it demonstrates what the world lacks and draws them to Christ. The world is bland and therefore unsatisfying, but a true believer's lifestyle should be like salt, provoking people to thirst for the satisfying water that only Christ can give. Jesus told us that we can lose our saltiness. We can lose our saltiness. Loss of saltiness is due to lack of commitment. Loss of saltiness is due to sin. Loss of saltiness is due to persecution. When the hard time comes and we break under pressure, that is when we can lose our saltiness. We must stand up firm in our faith. Jesus did not describe Christians as the gold or silver or jewels of the earth. He said we are salt. God uses salt. This means that God can use you and me. There are about 14,000 industrial uses for salt. And that's a lot of possibilities. All God needs of you to use you is all of you. You are the salt of the earth, but God cannot use you if you do not get out of your comfort zone. In fact, God can take you out of your comfort zone, turn your life upside down, and shake things up to make you usable for His glory. Most of the salt in the nation of Israel came from the Dead Sea. It contained impurities. Impurities can cause flavor loss. Jesus proclaimed blessings over those who are persecuted, not only for living for righteousness' sake, but for living for Him. He described His followers and believers today as salt who are clearly called to influence, improve, and make the world a better place. My friends, ask yourselves today, are you being salty? Are you worth your salt? Does your presence make a difference in your environment? Are you deterring people from sin and provoking them towards righteousness? Are you making people thirsty for Christ? How can a person grow in saltiness and maximize one's effectiveness in blessing the world and other believers? To grow in saltiness,